Good evening, everyone. In today's session, we are going to talk about one of the most important topic under GST, which is the foundation for handling the litigations. That is how to handle show cause notices under GST. Friends, today's agenda covers four broad aspects. First, we'll touch upon the statutory provisions which are there relating to the issuance of show cause notice. In the second section, we'll talk about the issues which are related to issuance and adjudication of show cause notices. Then, if the time permits, we'll definitely touch upon emerging disputes and controversies under which the show cause notices have been currently issued. And at the end, we will be talking about some of the key considerations which you will keep in mind while drafting the response or submissions to the show cause notices. Friends, at the end, we'll share some of the sample formats of the submissions. And friends, in order to make this presentation and this webinar more and more interactive, what we have done is we have added few case studies at the end of each section. I would request each one of you to please participate in those case studies so that if any queries that you have, that will be addressed there and there itself. In case if there are any queries which are still left out, I'll definitely take it up at the end of the session if the time permits. Otherwise, you can write the queries to me at the Taxmann mail ID and we'll provide you the response. So friends, without wasting much time, let's start with the key statutory provisions relating to show cause notices. Friends, as we all know that GST is a self-assessment tax regime. What does it mean? It means that every dealer who is registered with the GST is required to self-assess the tax on a periodical basis, calculate the credits available to him, and pay the net taxes at the time of filing the periodical returns. If there is any tax which is left out and not paid while filing the periodical returns, the registered dealer has the opportunity to pay that tax at the time of filing the annual return. Friends, GST law also contains the provisions relating to the assessment of tax, which will be done by the GST officers, which will be done through scrutiny of the books of accounts and the periodical returns filed by us. Now, while doing that examination, while doing that scrutiny, if the proper officer is of the opinion that any person has failed to correctly assess the tax, or taxes have been short paid, or any input tax credit has been wrongly availed, or any refunds has been erroneously granted, then the proper officer has the power to determine the tax, interest, and penalty which is payable by that person. In order to do so, the proper officer is required to issue a show cause notice. Now, friends, let's look at the various sections under which a show cause notice can be issued. Friends, largely there are three sections under which a show cause notice can be issued. First is section 73. Now, section 73 covers the defaults which are otherwise done by way of a fraud, willful misstatement, and suppression of facts. However, for the sake of simplicity, let's call it as bona fide cases. So, if there is any default in the payment of taxes or there is any default in claiming of credits on account of bona fide reasons, then the proper officer is required to issue a show cause notice under section 73. Section 74 covers the mala-fide cases, that is, where the taxes are not paid or the credits are wrongly claimed by a reason of fraud, willful misstatement, or the suppression of facts. The proper officer has the power to issue a show cause notice, and that show cause notice will be issued under section 74. Then, friends, we have another section, section 129, which deals with the transportation of goods. It provides that if the goods are transported from one location to another location and the provisions of GST are not being properly complied with, here also the proper officer has the power to issue a show cause notice, and that show cause notice will be issued under section 129. So largely there are these three sections. Now let's go into one of the each section and see what does it provides. Section 73, friends, as I mentioned, that it covers the bona fide cases. That is where the taxes are not paid, short paid, ITC has been wrongly availed on account of genuine mistakes. It is not on account of frauds. It is on account of a bona fide mistakes. Then a show cause notice will be issued under section 73. What are the implications? First implication is any show cause notice under section 73 can be issued only up to the normal period of limitation. We'll see in the subsequent slides what is the normal period of limitations, but it can cover only the normal period of limitation. Second, no penalty which is meant to be invoked for mala fide cases can be invoked when a Section 73 notice is issued. Let's look at, friends, what is Section 74. Section 74 talks about where any taxes has not been paid or any credits has been wrongly availed due to a reason of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression of facts. The proper officer can issue a show cause notice under Section 74. Now, friends, these terms are very important to look at. The term fraud has not been defined under the GST Act. In common parlance, fraud means act of cheating to get some money. Likewise, suppression of facts. The term suppression of facts has been defined under the GST law as non-disclosing any statement or non-disclosing any data which a person is mandatorily required to disclose while filing the return, or non-submission of any information which is asked by the proper officer in writing. If that is the case, then it amounts to a suppression of facts. Likewise, willful misstatement is again not defined under the GST law, but the term willful clearly indicates that there is an intent to evade the tax. And in order to do so, any statement which is wrongly submitted. Now, the notable aspects are here are that Section 74 gets attracted when there is an intention to evade tax, and the burden of proof lies on the revenue. The revenue has to prove rather that there is a case fit for fraud or willful misstatement or suppression of facts while issuing Section 74 notice. What are the implications? The implications are that it can cover both normal period of limitation as well as the extended period of limitation. It provides for the harsh penalties which are leviable for the malafide cases. Friends, in the subsequent slides, when we discuss the case studies, we'll look at what section, how the notices have been issued, whether the notices are valid or invalid. Now, friends, let's look at the procedure for issuance of show cause notice. The procedure is quite common for Section 73 and Section 74 defaults. However, for the sake of convenience, we have divided this procedure into three broad buckets: pre-show cause stage, show cause stage, and the post-show cause stage. Now, in pre-show cause stage, a proper officer was required to issue a pre-show cause consultation notice in form DRC-01. I mentioned, friends, was required because this provision was mandatory prior to October 2020. However, effective 15th October 2020, this is made optional. Now the assessing authority or the proper officer has the choice whether to follow this stage or can completely skip this stage. In case the proper officer follows this stage, it has a lot of its own advantages for the taxpayer, because if taxpayer accepts the default and wants to make the payment, he can very well make the payment. And in case if it was a genuine mistake, there is no penalty which is payable by him. He can simply pay the tax and interest and pay that taxes through DRC-03, file an intimation to the proper officer. Proper officer will acknowledge the receipt of the payment of tax and interest, and that acknowledgement will be issued under DRC-04. And once that is done, there will be a closure of proceeding. There will be no penalty whatsoever will be levied on the assessee. Also, in case if the matter is amounting to fraud and this pre-show cause consultation is issued, still there is an opportunity for the registered taxpayer to get away by paying taxes, interest, and minimalistic penalty of 15% of the tax. And once this stage is crossed, the next stage is the show cause stage. Here, the show cause notice will be issued. It will be issued either under Section 73 or it will be issued under Section 74. And the show cause would be served to the assessee. We'll see in the subsequent slides what do we mean by service of show cause notice. Then comes the post show cause stage. Once a show cause is issued, friends, there are three basic checks which we need to do. First, we need to check whether the show cause is issued within the time. We'll see what is the timelines. We need to check whether the show cause is issued by the proper officer. We need to check the jurisdiction of the officer. Friends, in the subsequent slides, we will see that how an officer becomes a proper officer for issuance of a show cause notice. Then we need to check whether the show cause notice is served by a valid modes. Once all the three boxes get ticked, then a dealer needs to decide whether he wants to contest the matter or want to close the matter. In case the dealer chooses to contest the matter, an objection against that show cause notice needs to be filed in Part B of DRC 01. That needs to be filed within the prescribed time limit, which is typically 30 days. An opportunity will be granted by the officer in case it is it is sought by the dealer, or a negative outcome is contemplated. Once all that is done, the proper officer is going to pass an order either in favor or against the SEC. So these are this is a basic procedure which a proper officer is required to follow right from pre-SCN stage till the disposal of the SCN. Now, friends, I mentioned that there is one more section, section 122, which deals with movement of goods for which a show cause notice is issued. Now, it typically covers that when the goods are transported or when the goods are stored while they were in transit and the provisions of GST law are not being properly followed. In all such cases, the proper officer has the power to detain the goods, to seize the vehicle, to seize the documents that were accompanying with the goods. And in order to do so, the proper officer is required to issue a show cause notice, and that show cause notice will be issued under section 129 of the GST Act. So, friends, let's have a bird's eye view of the show cause notices which are to be issued under different sections. Section 73, Section 74, and Section 129. Section 73, we talked about, it covers only the bona fide mistakes. Now, what is the timeline? Law provides that show cause notice must be issued at least 3 months prior to the closure of 3 years from the date of filing of annual return. So, typically, the law gets a time period of 2 years and 9 months from the due date of filing of annual return if a show cause notice under section 73 is to be issued. Penalty. It provides for a higher of 10% of tax or rupees 10,000 as penalty. However, in case if a dealer intends to close the matter prior to the issue of show cause notice or even within 30 days of issuance of show cause notice, there will be no penalty. That is the benefit of pre-closure of matters under section 73. Then comes section 74, which are malified cases, that is cases of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression of facts. It covers extended period of limitation, friends. Here a show cause notice has to be issued at least 6 months in advance prior to closure of 5 years from the due date of filing of annual return, which basically means that a show cause notice has to be issued within a period of 4 years and 6 months from the due date of filing of annual return. It prescribes a penalty of 100% of tax or 10,000, whichever is higher. Friends, here, if a dealer intends to close the matter after the issuance of show cause notice, but within a period of 30 days of the show cause notice, then he can do so by paying 25% penalty instead of payment of 100%. Then comes show cause notice under section 129. We talked about this provision. Here, the show cause notice has to be issued within a period of 7 days from the date of detention of goods or detention of conveyance. In this case, the proper officer is required to pass an order within a period of 7 days from the date of issuance of show cause notice. Penalty is quite significant in section 129. It depends on whether the goods are taxable goods or exempt goods, whether the assessee comes forward and pays the taxes and the penalty, or he wants to contest the matter. The penalty goes as high as 200% of the tax or 50% of the value of goods. Now, friends, let's look at some of the other provisions. I mentioned that once you receive a show cause notice, you need to apply three basic tests. One of the tests was whether the show cause notice is issued by the proper officer. What does it mean? Friends, the law for the proper distribution of work and relating to issuance and adjudication of show cause notices, the government has prescribed the monetary limits for the different levels of the officers. For example, a superintendent of central tax cannot issue a show cause notice where the demand under the CGST Act is more than 10 lakhs. If the demand is more than 10 lakhs up to 1 crore, then that show cause notice has to be issued either by the deputy commissioner or by the assistant commissioner of CGST. Likewise, where the demand is more than 1 crore, then that show cause notice has to be issued either by the additional commissioner or by the joint commissioner of central tax. These limits are doubled in case there is a demand on account of IGST. And if there is a combined demand by CGST and the IGST, then the maximum limits which are there for IGST will apply. Friends, this is a circular which is issued under the CGST Act. Similarly, circulars have been issued under the State Act. Various state governments have come out with their respective circulars prescribing the monetary limit for the level of officers who can issue and adjudicate a show cause notice. Next important provision which we need to look at here is that show cause notice should be properly communicated to the assessee. What does it mean? It means that the mode of communication should be proper. The law provides 6 different modes of communication. However, there are 4 modes which are commonly used. The first mode is it can be hand delivered to the assessee. It can be delivered to the accountant of the assessee. It can be delivered to the authorized representative of the assessee who has the valid power of attorney. Second mode is it can be sent via registered post. It can be sent via speed post or a courier. Third mode, friends, is email. It can be emailed at the email address which is known at the time of registration, or if that email address was updated, the updated email address. Third and fourth, and the most important mode is uploading the show cause notice at the common portal. Friends, this is one of the most important mode of communication. There are judgments. Madhya Pradesh High Court has clearly said that no matter if you are following the other modes of communication, but if you have not uploaded the show cause notice at the common portal, it will not be considered as valid communication. Friends, there are other modes also, like publication in the newspapers or pasting the show cause notice at the conspicuous place. That is typically followed when the dealers are not traceable. So, friends, we have looked at basic provisions which are there for issuance of show cause notice. Let's look at some of the case studies. And I would request each one of you to please participate in these case studies so that if you have any queries, it should get addressed there and there itself. Now, in this case, what happened, friends? Messrs. ABC Limited was issued a show cause notice by the superintendent. The demand was 12 lakh under the CGST, 12 lakh under the SGST. What do you think, friends? Is the show cause notice valid? Yes or no? Friends, we have looked at the monetary limits. No, friends. It is not a valid show cause notice because the maximum limit for a superintendent to issue a show cause notice under CGST Act is 10 lakh. And recently, the Allahabad High Court, in the case of Messrs. Mansoori Enterprises, has allowed the writ petition challenging the jurisdiction of the superintendent. So, friends, you will look at through these case studies that if the show cause notice is not properly issued or it is not properly adjudicated, then it can be directly challenged before the High Court, and we can cut the litigation right from its bud rather than following the normal course of litigation. Now let's look at another case study, friends. In this case, Messrs. ABC Limited paid the due taxes, which was due as per the periodical return, but they paid the taxes after the due date. They did not pay any interest. SGST officer issued a show cause notice under form DRC-01 demanding the interest. What do you think, friends? Is the show cause notice valid? Officer was proper. He can issue a valid show cause notice. It was issued in DRC-01. Is the show cause notice valid, friends? No, friends. Show cause notice is not valid because the law provides where there is a demand for tax, interest, and penalty, then show cause has to be issued in DRC-01. But when the demand is only towards interest, DRC-01 is not the proper form for issuance of show cause notice. The proper officer is required to issue DRC-07. Recently, Gujarat High Court in Rajkamal Builders has clearly struck down the show cause notice issued in DRC-01 for demand of interest. Let's look at another case, friends. Proper officer issued a show cause notice under Section 73. What happened was they issued a show cause notice for 3 years as a single show cause notice. What do you think, friends? Is the show cause valid? They have issued show cause notice for 3 years, not for 1 year, as a single show cause notice. What do you think, friends? Is the show cause valid? Yes, friends, show cause is valid. GST law does not restrict the issuance of show cause notice for multiple years as single show cause notice. In fact, Section 73 clearly provides that where the show cause notice for 1 year is issued and for subsequent years, The matter are exactly the same. The proper officer need not issue a show cause notice. It can even issue a statement giving reference to the first year's show cause notice. However, there is a recent judgment by Titan Company of Madras High Court. It says that bunching of show cause notice is not valid when the period of limitation has expired. So, friends, while issuing a show cause notice for multiple years, a single show cause notice, what department needs to take care of is that limitation period should not be expired for any year. If the limitation period is expired, then that show cause notice is definitely not a valid show cause notice, and that is what the Madras High Court has held in Titan Company Limited. Let's look at another case study, friends. Goods belonging to Messrs. ABC Limited were transported in truck belonging to Messrs. XYZ Limited. While the truck was en route, it got intercepted by the check post officers. Goods were detained because there were faulty documents. Show cause notice was issued by the proper officer. It was handed over to the driver of the truck. No response was filed, and accordingly, the proper officer passed the ex parte order. What do you think, friends? Is the order valid? Yes, no. Answer, friends. No, friends, the order is not valid. Why the order is not valid? Because the show cause notice was handed over to the driver of the truck. Driver of the truck handing over the notice to the driver is not a valid mode of communication of show cause notice, friends. And recently, the Allahabad High Court in Ranchi Carrying Corporation has clearly struck down the order which was passed on the basis of a show cause notice which was handed over to the driver. Let's look at another case study, friends. Messrs. ABC Limited was issued a show cause notice by the superintendent. Reply was filed within time. However, while filing the reply, the SSC did not sought for any personal hearing. Since the personal hearing was not sought, it was not granted by the department, and the proper officer passed the negative order. Is the order valid? Yes or no? What do you think, friends? Is the order valid? No, friends, the order is not valid. Section 75(4) provides that a reasonable opportunity has to be given to the dealer in two circumstances. One, when it is specifically sought while filing the reply. Second, when a negative order is contemplated. So, in this particular case, the negative order was passed. Negative order cannot be passed without providing a reasonable opportunity of being heard. Recently, Allahabad High Court in BL Pahadia Medical Stores has struck down the order as it was against the principles of natural justice. So, friends, we have looked at provisions, basic provisions. We have looked at the case studies. Now, let's look at some of the issues which are in relation to issuance and adjudication of show cause notices. First important topic is authorization of officers. Friends, there are sections under the CGST Act like Section 3, which will provide you a list of CGST officers who can be called as the proper officers. Likewise, Section 3 of the SGST Act of various states will give you the list of officers under the SGST Act, which are the proper officers. However, friends, Section 6 of the CGST Act provides that an officer who is a proper officer under the SGST Act shall deem to be a proper officer under the CGST Act. Likewise, similar provisions are contained under the IGST Act and similar provisions are contained under the SGST Act. Friends, what is the need of having these kind of provisions under the law? What is the need? See, friends, any intrastate transaction is subject to two taxes, CGST and SGST. Had these provisions not been there under the GST law, so for every transaction, an SEC has to approach two different authorities. For CGST, they need to approach the CGST officer. For SGST tax, they need to approach the SGST officer. So, in order to avoid this kind of a hardship, it has been provided in the GST law that an officer who is a proper officer under the SGST Act shall deem to be a proper officer under the CGST Act also. So it basically means that when the assessment is initiated by a SGST officer, then that officer is empowered to pass an order, not only under the SGST Act, but also under the CGST Act and the IGST Act. Likewise, where the proceedings are initiated by the central officer, then central officer is not only empowered to pass an order under the CGST Act, but he is also empowered to pass an order under the SGST Act as well as under the IGST Act. Section 6 further provides, friends, that where the proceedings are initiated by the SGST officer, similar proceedings on the similar subject matter cannot be initiated by the CGST officer. That has to be kept in abeyance till the matter gets disposed of. Section 6(3) further provides that once an order is passed by the SGST officer, then any appeal, any rectification, or any revision in relation to that order should lie before the state appellate authority. Likewise, if the any order is passed by the central tax officer, then any appeal against that order should lie before the central adjudicating authority. So, friends, the question comes is how to divide a taxpayer between the center and the state. For this, friends, GST Council has provided some guidance. It says that where the taxpayer whose turnover is below 1.5 crore, the administrative control of 90% of such taxpayers rests with the state, whereas 10% will go to the central government. Also, taxpayers whose turnover is above 1.5 crores, that division of taxpayers between the center and state will be 50-50. This is for the administrative control, friends. The circular further provides the manner of computing the turnover. We are not getting into those details because those are not relevant for the present discussion. And this division of 90% or 50% between center and state, that will happen through a computer in a stratified manner. So, friends, we have looked at the provisions relating to cross empowerment. Now, let's look at some of the case studies. Again, I would request each one of you to please come forward and participate through these case studies. Now, Messrs. ABC Limited was assigned to the state authority. So, his administrative control lies with the state government. SGST officer issued a show cause notice for 1819 for wrong availment of input tax credit. The proceedings were underway. Reply was filed. Can CGST officer issued the show cause notice for 1819 on the similar matter? Yes or no, friends? No, friends. We have just seen where the proceedings are initiated by a state officer on similar subject matter. No proceedings can be initiated by the central officer till, and in case if it has been initiated, that will be kept in abeyance. Recently, Patna High Court in the matter of Bajwa constructions has held that where central tax authorities has already initiated the proceedings, separate proceedings initiated by the state authorities should be kept in abeyance. Let's look at another case study, friends. Messrs. ABC Limited was assigned to state authority. Show cause notice was issued for the year 1819. There were multiple matters. One matter was denial of input tax credit on intrastate purchases, and another matter was levy of GST on interstate transactions. So clearly, there were all the three taxes that were involved: CGST, SGST, and IGST. Can state officer pass all the three orders? That is, order under the CGST Act, order under the SGST Act, and order under the IGST Act. What do you think, friends? Can he pass? Yes, friends, he can very well pass the order. Also, Punjab and Haryana High Court in Bright Road Logistics has held that cross empowerment means that state authorities empowered under the State Act can also enforce the provisions of CGST and IGST. Sorry, friends. Let's look at another case study, friends. In this case, Mrs. ABC Limited was assigned to the state authority. Now, state officer issued a show cause notice for the year 1819 for wrong availment of input tax credit. The proceedings were underway. CGST officer also issued a show cause notice for the year 1819 for illegal refund claims. Is the show cause issued by the CGST officer valid? Can he issue? Because the proceedings under the SGST and the show cause notice issued by the SGST officer was still underway. Can CGST officer issue a fresh show cause notice? What do you think, friends? Can he or he cannot? He can very well issue, friends. Section 6 does not bar if the matter is different. It only prohibits that on same subject matter proceedings cannot be initiated by the CGST officer if the matter is already underway through a show cause issued by the SGST officer. This matter went to Bombay High Court in Yash Alloy Limited, and they said clearly that Section 6(2)(b) of the MGST Act would not apply to bar CGST proceedings where the subject matter is different. Here, friends, subject matter is different. As GST officer has issued show cause notice for wrong availment of input tax credit, whereas the CGST officer has issued a show cause notice for illegal refund claims. So, subject matter is different. If the subject matter is different, it can very well do that. Let's look at another case study, friends. Maharashtra GST authorities initiated investigation proceedings against Messrs ABC Limited for denial of input tax credit on select items. Similarly, at the same time, Patna GST authorities initiated investigation proceedings against Messrs XYZ Limited for denial of credit on similar items. Now, what was the similarity? The similarity was that their supplier was one. Mr. A was the supplier who was supplying goods to Messrs ABC Limited. Mr. A was the supplier who was supplying goods to XYZ Limited. Summons were issued to Mr. A to appear as a witness. Can Mr. A take an argument that on similar matter, proceedings cannot be initiated by two different authorities? Because at one point in time, the investigation was done by CGST authorities. At the same time, Patna state authorities have also initiated the proceedings. Subject matter is same, denial of input tax credit on the same items. Can Mr. A take this plea and refuse to appear for the summons? What do you think, friends? Can he take that plea? Yes or no? No, friends. Mr. A cannot take that plea. Summons are very well varied. Section 6 bars proceedings by different authorities on similar matter against the same assessee. In this case, the assessees are different. CGST authorities are doing an investigation against Mr. ABC, and state authorities are doing investigation against Mrs. XYZ Limited. Mr. A is only a person to whom the summons have issued to appear as a witness. He is bound to appear before both the authorities. Let's look at another case study, friends. Mrs. ABC Limited was assigned to a state authority. Central Central Investigating Agency initiated a proceedings. Is the proceedings valid? Or Mrs. ABC Limited can take an argument that since I am assigned to this state authority, Central Investigation Agency cannot do this proceedings. What do you think, friends? Are the proceedings valid? Yes or no? Yes, friends, proceedings are very well valid. CBEC wide clarification number 2043 by 2017 has clarified that though the taxable persons are bifurcated between center and state for administration purposes, but the enforcement agencies, whether they are belonging to center or they are belonging to state, they are authorized to initiate intelligence based inquiry. For them this restriction, this bifurcation doesn't apply, and whether that is a central investigation agency or a state investigation agency. Let's look at another case study, friends. Now, ABC Limited, we have made all the case studies against ABC Limited. ABC Limited is assigned to the state GST authority. SGST officer has passed an order under the IGST Act. Friends, we have seen that SGST officer is an authorized officer to pass an order under the SGST Act, CGST Act, and the IGST Act. So, an order was passed by the SGST officer under the IGST Act. Now, ABC Limited has filed an appeal against this order before the Joint Commissioner Appeals of Central. Is the appeal valid? Is the appeal valid, friends? The appeal is against the IGST order, which is a central act. Appeal was filed before the Commissioner Appeals Central. Is the appeal valid? No, friends, appeal is not valid. Law clearly provides that if the order is passed by the state officer, then any appeal, any rectification against that order shall lie before the state appellate authority. It cannot be filed against before the central appellate authority. Recently, Commissioner Appeals of Rajasthan in the case of MetaCube Business Ventures has clearly provided that an appeal filed before the appellate authority under the CGST Act against the order of SGST Act is not maintainable. Let's look at another case study, friends. We are running out of time. Mrs. ABC Limited is an SEZ unit. Now, state GST authorities conducted a search in the SEZ area. Is the search proceedings valid? For the people who do not know about the SEZ areas, I'll tell them briefly that these are the areas which are under the control, close control and monitoring of the SEZ authorities, which are the DGFT authorities. Now, movement of goods, and there are a lot of restrictions for people entering and exiting from the from that area. So considering that is considered as a very controlled and secured area under the control and supervision of the SGST authority, SEZ authorities, can GST authorities conduct this search in the area without taking any approval from anyone? What do you think, friends? Yes or no? They can conduct a search or they cannot conduct a search? Answer it quickly, friends. Yes, friends, they can very well conduct the search. Recently, Gujarat High Court, in the case of RHC Global Export Private Limited, has clearly held that GST authorities are empowered to investigate and conduct search operation in the SEZ unit without taking any prior approval or even without intimating to the SEZ authorities. So, friends, with this we come to an end of first two agenda points, that is the provisions relating to issuance of show cause notice. We have looked at the case studies around that, and the second one was issues and challenges relating to issuance and adjudication of a show cause notice. Now, friends, let's look at some of the disputes and controversies which are commonly seen across the industry. For the ease of reference, what we have done is we have divided these controversies and disputes into two broad categories. One are disputes relating to the procedural aspects, and second is disputes relating to the technical aspects. So, friends, first of the procedural aspect where we have seen a lot of notices being coming in is denial of input tax credit on account of cancellation of registration certificate of the supplier. Friends, we have seen a lot of show cause notices coming in on this account only, that they are denying input tax credit to a buyer because their supplier's registration certificate has been cancelled. Friends, while replying to these kind of show cause notices, my humble submission is, first, before preparing a response, just do a factual check, because in my personal experience I have seen multiple cases where the dealer was active, the registration was not cancelled, still a show cause notice has been issued. So first of all, do that factual check before applying your brains how to draft a reply. Once that is done, also check, friends, whether that supplier was registered at the time when the purchases were made. There is a possibility, and there are again many cases I've seen that the registration was cancelled at the subsequent date, but it was cancelled with retrospective effect. So, friends, for this we have a Supreme Court ruling in the case of State of Maharashtra versus Suresh Trading Company, which clearly provides that a cancellation of registration with retrospective effect will have no impact on the credits availed when the certificate was active. So, friends, just do a due diligence, just do a check, factual check before preparing a response, before, and highlight those facts very clearly and in bold in the reply that you file before the authorities. Another aspects that we have seen, friends, is denial of input tax credit due to mismatch between GSTR 3 and GSTR 2B, 2A. So, friends, we have seen almost every show cause notice. You will find this point where there is a denial of input tax credit due to a mismatch between 3B and 2A. Friends, here what we need to understand is GSTR 2A is merely a statement. That statement lists down all the purchases that we have made, all the taxes that we have paid against those purchases. It is not a statement of credits claimed by us. So, again, the request is have a reconciliation ready with you to check when the ITC on the items which are coming as restricted items, because the show cause notice will provide you a list of all those items which are which on which credit cannot be claimed, on which the credit is barred under section 17(5), and they'll allege that you have claimed all that credit. So, friends, Just do that factual check before preparing a response. Also, when you are preparing a response, just see what is the period involved. If the period involved is prior to October 9, 2019, in that case, there was no requirement under the GST law to avail the credit on the basis of GST R2A. And law cannot, GST officers, the department cannot ask me to do a thing which is not given in the law. It is clearly provided by Karnataka High Court in the matter of Rajshri impacts that my credit cannot be denied just because there is a mismatch between GSTR 3B and GSTR 2A, especially for the period prior to October 2019. Even for the period, friends, post 2019, there is a circular which is issued which says that in order to determine your eligible input tax credit, a registered person may refer to the auto populated GSTR 2A. Friends, it refers to the terms may. It indicates it is not mandatory. Also, friends, we have a Supreme Court ruling in the case of Bharti Airtel, which clearly says that GSTR 2A is only a functionality, whereas the payment of tax has to be done on a self assessment basis. So, it is only a tool, it is only a functionality for the facilitation of the taxpayer to avail the correct credits. Input tax credit cannot be denied on account of any mismatch between GSTR 3B and GSTR 2A. Then, friends, we have seen a lot of cases which are coming up relating to check post matters. And as I mentioned, friends, in section 129, 130, there are very, very high penalties which are provided. And we have seen a lot of check post matters. And when these matters went to the High Court, it was seen that lot of penalty has been created because of some trivial issues, some typographic error in the documentations which are created. And courts have clearly held that presence of mens rea is a prerequisite to invoke penalty under section 129 and 130. And post that, when there is a flurry of appeals that were going to High Court, government was bound to come up with a circular number for 64, which clearly provides a list of activities which is typically considered as a typographic error, for which the government has itself provided that a token penalty should be levied, and it should not be as high as 50% of the value of goods or 200% of the taxes involved. Now, what is considered as a typographic error? The the circular clearly lays down various instances, such as if there is any spelling error in the name of the consignor or consignee, whereas the GST number is correctly mentioned. Also, if there is any error in the PIN code, if there is any error in one or two digit of the document number, if there is any error in the HSN class in the HSN number that is being mentioned, if there is any error in one or two digits or characters of the vehicle number. So there are empty number of decisions where the penalty as high as 40-50% of the value of goods is enforced for these trivial issues, and for which the courts have clearly held time and again that mens rea is a prerequisite if you intend to levy a penalty of as high as under section 129 and what 130 provides. Now, friends, let's look at one or two technical issues on which we have seen a lot of notices are coming across the industry. First of the issue is levy of GST on the notice pay recovery. Friends, what is happening is that if any employee wants to leave the organization early without serving the notice period, the companies typically recover an amount for the default which they are causing by not serving the notice period. It is either recovered from the employees or it is adjusted through the full and final payment which is due to an employee. Now, what authorities are saying is that whatever is recovered should be taxable under GST as a service, because the company has suffered by non serving of the employee for the full notice period. And there is an entry in schedule 2 which talks about agreeing to do an act, or obligation to do an act, or to tolerate an act. So what authorities are basically alleging is the companies are tolerating the employees to leave the job early without serving the complete notice period, and for which the recovery is made and therefore it is liable to GST. Friends, in our view, this is completely a baseless argument. This is not liable to GST. and there are multiple reasons why it is not. First of all, friends, we need to refer to entry number 1 of schedule 3, which talks about services by an employee during the course of the employment. Now whatever work an employee is doing during the notice period is within the course of the employment. Friends, it is a part and parcel of the employment contract. So, as per entry number 1 of Schedule 3, that is not considered as either supply of goods or supply of services for levy of GST. Notice pay recovery can at best be linked with the compensatory damages under the Indian Contract Act. Friends, there are a lot of rulings under the erstwhile act, because this is not a new issue which has emerged under the GST law. This issue was prevalent even under the erstwhile service tax regime, and there are a lot of decisions under the erstwhile regime, and even under the GST law we have seen a lot of advanced ruling coming in, which has said that no GST is leviable on any amount that is recovered or forfeited from the employees on account of their leaving the organization early. Friends, these are some of the points, relevant points. In case if you face any of such issue, you can refer to these points while drafting your response to the show cause notice. However, what you need to actually keep in mind is you may not have to rely too much on the advanced rulings for two reasons. One, advanced rulings are typically against the SSE. Second, the advanced rulings are binding only on the assessee who has sought the advanced ruling, so it will have no relevance in your case. But yeah, it definitely provides a guiding principle. And second, there may be contrary advanced rulings also on this matter, so you need to be aware of those rulings also, while you will not need to quote those in your reply, but you need to be aware of all those rulings in case if the department intends to rely on them. Another issue is denial of input tax credit on the expenses which are incurred for CSR expenses. Friends, we have seen a lot of show cause notices coming in to deny the input tax credit, especially for the period prior to 31st March 2023. Because from 1st of April 2023, uh, GST credit on CSR expenses has been barred, as it has been specifically included in the list of blocked credits. But for the period prior to 31st March 2023, there are a flurry of notices which are coming in for denying the input tax credit on the CSR activities. Now, friends, what authorities are trying to say is that these are in the nature of social contribution. These cannot be considered as an activity which are in the course or furtherance of business. Friends, in our view, the credit is definitely available for multiple reasons. One reason, and the very important reason, is that I'm doing CSR expenses, no doubt for my social contribution, but also it is mandatory under Section 135 of the Companies Act. And if you look at the definition of business under the GST Act, it is wide enough to cover any activity which are incidental or ancillary to any trade, commerce, or manufacture. There are empty number of Supreme Court decisions. For example, decision in the case of Malayam Plantation Limited, which clearly says that for the purposes of business, it may not include only day-to-day running of business, but it also includes rationalization of the administration, modernization of machinery, or any such activities. So any ancillary activity, any incidental activity of business definitely falls within the preview of business, and any such expenses are definitely considered to be an expenses done in the course or furtherance of business. Then, friends, again we have a lot of advanced rulings in favor. For example, uh, advanced ruling given by the state of Uttar Pradesh in Dwarikesh Sugar, again allowing the input tax credit on CSR expenses. But definitely, again, you need to keep in mind that advanced rulings are binding only on those assessees who have sought them. And second, there are contrary rulings also which you should be aware of. Another important topic is, and which is quite recent, quite hot, is secondment of employees. Friends, we have seen that, especially after the recent Supreme Court decision in the matter of Northern Operating, which has held that secondment of employees is construed as import of service, and it is liable to service tax under the reverse charge mechanism. Friends, this is a decision which is relating to the erstwhile regime, but since the provision are same and same, it has been borrowed under the GST law, the same principles would apply. And We have seen after this ruling, there are flurry of notices coming left, right, and center to all the companies. Friends, what you need to look at is this ruling cannot be applied blindly. While it has categorically said that secondment of employees is construed as import of service, but there are various factors that we need to look at. And since a lot of notices were being issued, representations were filed before the government, and CBIC had to come out with an instruction wide number 5 or 2023, which clearly provides that it should be applied mechanically. The department needs to look at the activities and facts critically before demanding any GST. It cannot be blindly applied, friends. So, friends, with this, we come to an end of our third section, which is emerging issues and disputes. While I know that there are many more issues on which show cause notice has been issued, but we have tried to collate the issues which are common to the industry, keeping the time sensitivity also. Now we come to our last section, which is key considerations that you should keep in mind while drafting response to a show cause notice. Friends, first advice is start from the scratch. No matter you have been serving your client for many, many years, but whenever you receive a show cause notice, start from the scratch. Ask as minute details as you can, because you have to start all the fresh. Ask all the details. Ask your client, no matter he gets upset that he may say that you know my business very well, but insist the client to tell you all the facts relating to the transaction, relating to the business model, so that there is no aspect which is left without capturing. Document all your facts clearly and completely. It is very important, friends. All the facts should be properly documented while drafting the response to a show cause notice. Then address all the issues in the show cause notice which are raised in the show cause notice point wise. Friends, address all the issues. Never leave out any issue which is raised in the show cause notice. You have two ways to do it. Either address the issues in the same manner, in the same serial order in which it is raised, or you may also design your reply in such a manner that you may pick up the issues which has high value items as the first priority, and then low value items as a second priority. Now in the second approach, what will happen is you can drive your conversation when an opportunity is given to you in your own manner, and some low ticket items may get crossed without requiring much of a discussion. Third important aspect is reply should be crisp and to the point. Don't quote jargons. There is no need. Quote the judgments which are relevant to the matter, and preferably the judgments which are of higher forum. Do not use any harsh words. And lastly, friends, prayer clause should be meticulously drafted. Please very carefully draft the prayer clause. Definitely ask for an opportunity of being heard. If it is not been asked, you have seen cases where the orders have been passed ex parte without providing an opportunity of being heard. And then we need to again approach the High Court to get those order quashed. There is no point in getting into those kind of a litigation. So draft your prayer clause very, very clearly, very meticulously, document all the facts, and it should be a crisp and to the point reply. Finally, friends, here are some of the sample formats which you will definitely get along with this presentation. Uh, and friends, you can access to our website, which is Taxman Practice Module, where you can access more than 100 of such formats consisting under GST and the direct tax. So you can access more than 100 plus formats, which is, and then the count as we speak is growing on a daily basis. So you can access all those submissions both under GST and direct tax by subscribing to our Taxman Practice Module. Friends, with this, I come to an end of my session. I think I'm pretty on time. I'm happy to take up your questions if there are any left. Else, we can wind up this presentation. So friends, the first question is, oh, in case of an order passed under Section 74, the taxpayer intends to go in appeal. However, in order to avoid the interest accumulation and higher penalty, if the appeal goes against him, he can pay 100% of the tax demand under protest within 30 days of the passing of the order. In the event the appeal order is passed in his favor, can the refund of tax paid under protest be obtained? Yes, definitely, friends, you can obtain a refund of your tax, but still, if you want to pay within 30 days of issuance of show cause notice, you have to end up paying at least 25% of the penalty. Yeah, that much you need to pay. And you can definitely file an appeal, but there is one requirement, friend, that if you have paid 100%, and there is a requirement under the law which says that if you have accepted the demand, you need to file an intimation of your acceptance. Be careful while filing that intimation. Do mention that this we are paying under protest and we intend to litigate. 73(5) and Rule 142 are in definitely yes, they are in contradiction. Last date to raise demand for, is it wide? Uh, and I'm not able to understand this query. Is it wide DRC 03 itself? What does it mean, friend? Can an officer pass show cause notice while taking refund of TCS for and which is not pertaining to the same financial year? No, friend, he can't do that. How can a demand be paid under protest? Friend, there is no procedure which is provided under the law to pay a demand under protest. It has to be paid through a normal channel only. However, when you file an intimation to the jurisdictional officer, you can mention the fact that you have paid the taxes under protest and you intend to litigate. In e-way bill, if the truck is picked up in Gujarat or Delhi, DRC is paid by the party. Where to file? Friend, the appeal is to be filed before the jurisdictional officer who has issued the show cause notice. First, you need to file a reply to that, and against that, to that jurisdictional authority, you need to file an appeal. So I think, friends, we have covered almost all the queries. In case if there are any queries left, do reach out to us. Do send us your queries to our Taxman ID, and we'll definitely provide a response to you. Thank you so much, friends, for this patient listening.